Hello everybody and welcome to this week's webinar. This week we're going to be discussing support and resistance lines. We're going to be giving you insight on technical analysis as far as they are concerned, and Bia, our guest speaker, is going to get into how to create your own support and resistance lines based on history, and if you would like, you can also use the Gold Apprentices Market Roundup research report that we send out. So a few definitions. Support levels are prices that are believed to be the points at which the market is likely to change direction and start to climb. If the market price breaks through a support line, it is likely to continue to drop to the next support line. Alright, so let's zoom into this part of our graph. And then let's just say that this is our support line. So we say this because we expect that if the price drops to this point, it's likely to turn and start to climb again. Therefore, you would place a relevant trade. Resistance levels are prices at which the market price is expected to change direction and start to fall. If the market price breaks through a resistance level, it's expected to continue to climb until the next resistance level. So if we were to zoom into this part of a graph, just to show you a rough idea of what it might look like, let's just say this is our resistance level. So we expected the price to climb to this point and then start to fall thereafter, just like we expect it to do now. So now we're going to let Bia get into how to create your own support and resistance lines based on past price action.
So we go on our weekly graph, and we just try and identify some critical areas or significant levels, as I like to call them, and just remove the auto scroll here so I can actually go back in time, back the years, and just find a place where all the way back. And as you can see, I can also sort of shrink the size of the graph. So yes, let us scroll back. I'm scrolling back, and this is 1994. This is as far back as the graph will allow me to go. And the first point, as you can see, that's sort of the highest point that it reached within that area or within that period separator. And I just want to make it a different color so that we know that this is a monthly one and we know what color it is. Sorry, this is a weekly one. And I just go to my properties and choose a color, and for this let's just randomly choose our lime green. So now I know my lime green is for my weekly graphs, and those are the significant levels for my weekly graph. So just to be a little bit accurate, I zoom in because I just want to place this directly where the candlestick ends, and for accuracy you would obviously need to zoom in like I've done. So now let's just find another area of significant or level of significant, and as you can see over here, this is a low point where the graph reached. There we go. And now I just start scrolling back to the present, and every time within a time period separator, if you don't know what period separators, they're actually the vertical dotted black lines. I just keep going back and identifying these lines of significance for every period. And there's another point. And what you'll find is that you're gonna have a graph with so many lines. Now, a lot of people will start finding that confusing, as in which line is more important, which one is it gonna go to, is it gonna go to the next one, is it gonna skip the next one? And that's where the whole strategy or application of this strategy comes in. What we're doing is just creating significant lines of support, not necessarily of support and resistance, but significant lines where the graph somehow reacts to these levels, to these price levels when it reaches each one respectively. So as a strategy, we want to have as many lines as we can, but only the tested ones are the points at which we will start then putting our pending orders on. So as you can see here, I'm just simply going back in time and plotting lines of significance where there's either a change in direction or there's some sort of resistance or retracement in terms of that price level. And there we go. Simple as that. Just keep going forward. Nothing to it really. And remember, the green stands for my weekly levels. Alright, so depending, if you're a daily trader, you will have your weekly, your hourly, and your daily levels. Alright, and obviously you will then look at what your trend is for your week, and then look at the daily one, and those should be able to dictate to you what is happening to the hourly graph. Remember, the whole question we're trying to answer here is, when do I buy and when do I sell? So traders, it's the most famous question I get as an expert trader is, yes, I understand everything, I understand how the graphs work, volumes, etc., but when do I buy, when do I sell, when do I place my trades? Alright, and these lines are your guide. Of course, this is not the only tool you use to determine when to place trades, but this should significantly help you make that decision, make it easier for you to decide. Alright, and as you can see, lines that I've already drawn seem to be significant even in the future. And just scrolling back, just the usual. That's a very interesting line there. As you can see, that's been tested so many times. Therefore, that would be, I can actually call that a significant resistant line. Alright, because you can see the amount of times it's been tested. Similar to that one next to it as well. It's been tested quite a lot of times, and that's where our current price is at. Can get a little bit tedious just drawing lines and scrolling back, but it's gonna help us trade better. Isn't that what we want? And we keep going. Now I finished with my weekly graph, just some final touches, and as you can see, every level has been marked. Now what I want to do is go and move on to another chart. Alright, just checking that all the levels have been dealt with. Scroll back a little and we can see that every significant level has been marked. And now what we want to do is go to our daily graph and sort of do the same thing. So I'm going to scroll back in time. Here we go, all the way back. I think this is where it actually ends. Okay, so but now I want to change my setting to another color, because I don't want to, the lime green, remember, stands for a weekly graph, so now I want to change it to a sort of blue to represent my daily graph lines of significance. Okay, and starting from all the way back here, sort of see lines of significance where we start off. And as you can see, lines already on a weekly graph they've already been represented on a daily graph as well. And that's usually the case. Your weekly graph or the higher time frame graph, when you plot those lines, you find out that they are also significant on a daily graph. And that's how we know that that's a very strong point, or that's a very strong line of resistance or a line of support. Because remember, technical analysis is simply about looking at the past, and any level that's been significant in the past will 90% of the times be significant in the future. So I just scroll back here, and we're pretty much doing the same thing. What I'm going to do in our next session is, after we've plotted all these lines, how do we strategize now? When do we place the buy orders, the sell orders, etc., etc.? So our main focus for this session of our webinar today is simply for us to go back to our graphs and actually just watch now, without placing any trades or anything. Just watch to see if those lines that we've drawn are actually significant. So what I want you to do for the next week is, you've drawn all your lines, and you've drawn your weekly lines, you've drawn your daily lines, and you've drawn your hourly lines. And then I want you to sort of investigate over the next week whether those lines are significant or not. And any line that's very critical and significant, I want you to take note of that price level. Okay, because then next week we can discuss the strategy on how we then use all this information we have, all these lines, and when do we place the trades, when do we place the orders, and how do we move forward from there.
So that's it for Technical Analysis, Support and Resistance Part 1. Look out for Part 2, which we should be uploading in the next month or so, where we'll tackle actually trading now that you have support and resistance lines that you've come up with. Also look out for our support and resistance based on our market research roundup that the Gold Apprentice sends out on a daily basis. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll chat to you next time.